what are the behavioral cues and what are the things we need to look at coaching or, how do people actually change the mental processes, especially around holidays when there's all these extra events going on?
Well, it's the case, isn't it the case that those people who are established nutritarians, long-term, successfully at their ideal weight, they have the mindset to be like the health nuts we are. Those people's weight does not fluctuate during the holidays. But the people that were the newbies just coming in,
correct,
they were not really understanding or really had the experience, and they're still struggling because they're food addicts. And when they're around parties and holidays, they're tempted and they go off their diet, gain weight, and keep gaining. So they really are having trouble actually becoming a nutritarian. With those, so you have the combination of both types of people, right?
Right, exactly. And that's what fast food genocide, which you wrote about, extensively covers, is really the addictive properties of foods that I don't think we really realize how ubiquitous the processed foods are in our society.
Right, and these people, they want to be a nutritarian, they want to eat healthy, they want to lose weight, but they can't do it.
Right.
They're too pulled in other directions, and it's impossible for them to adhere to it. And that's why, I have what we've done that we found that's helping those people more now, other than just teaching them about nutrition only, is teaching them about this type of mindfulness incorporated with wisdom teaching on how to build internally generated self-esteem. Because we found with experience over the years that people raised in America who have become food addicts, when they want to change their diet, they have pressure from other people and their family and their peers, and they're tempted by things around them. And that means that they're still looking for others for their own self-esteem. In other words, if a person is, we know how social media is, people want to, and in this country, we're raised to you have to look the best, you have to be the best athlete, you have to make the most money, you have to go to the fanciest schools, you have to have the fanciest clothing, you have to have the fanciest car. You're all about impressing other people. And going after trying to impress other people by collecting, any kind of, thing that try to feel yourself, you're superior, you build yourself up. It's like eating junk food. It doesn't lead to lasting happiness. The people who were like the most wealthy people, the most famous, the rock stars, the Hollywood stars, they're not happy. They have more divorce rates, more suicides, more drug abuse. It's just a vicious cycle. It just leads to more going after trying to impress other people, just leads to an ongoing vicious collection of continuing process, which they never have enough. And they can never be satisfied. It doesn't lead to real peace and satisfaction with yourself and your life. And so this dissatisfaction, this internal, you could say, their primitive brain is in conflict with them. When we start teaching people about how to generate internally generated self-esteem, you don't care what another person thinks of you, and you're not trying to impress anybody. When you meet another person, you interact with them, your goal and your purpose is to have creative goodwill for them and to see if you could use your creative intelligence to in some way add to that person's life, their harmony, their happiness, or their future health. And so now you have one purpose, and that's to have a goodwill for another person.
Wow.
And when you have this motive of having goodwill, it takes your own ego out of it because you don't have to have them like you, and you don't have to try to impress anybody. And you don't care, you don't try to have a comeback because you're not hurt by anything they can say. They can't hurt you by what they say. They can say, if I had to eat that way, I'd rather be dead, or how could you, who wants to have no fun in life? Well, it's that people, their whole fun in life comes from food because nothing else gives them passion.
Wow.
So we get people to start to build internally generated self-esteem, learn to be at peace with themselves, realize that they're not more important than anybody else. We're all interrelated, and our happiness is all interrelated with others. And when we benefit other people's happiness and well-being, we're benefiting ourselves at the same time. And we're all interrelated in the natural world too, in our care for the earth and our planet we travel on. So when we see our relation with other people, and then people start to be grateful for and appreciate the beauty, the wonder of natural food, and they start to have more gratitude for and more respect for the aesthetic structure of the world around them and things outside of themselves. When you're a food addict, the outside world doesn't matter. Just meeting your needs for addictive stimulation of the brain is what matters. And to the proportion that your brain gets hyperstimulated, it gets rewired, and you lose neuroplasticity, and you lose the ability to be creative, and you become somewhat dysthymic, which means that you're not getting much passion from living, much pleasure from your activities, other than brain stimulation, other than how you can stimulate your brain through food, through alcohol, through drugs. and you feel that the only worthwhile part of living is stimulating yourself with hyperpalatable food and taste. And it just demonstrates the meaningless of your life and how you're lacking passion for living and appreciation of the outside world. And so by teaching these people how to change their emotional outlook on life, it's almost like happiness training. And then we find I've seen this happen 1,000 times. We find that they're more into being a role model for others because they feel that gives them a better power to have a good effect on other people. They start to get more excitement about the world around them. Their own ego becomes less of a problem, so they can get along in their marriage better and their interaction with other people. Not as protecting their ego anymore, and they're not so self-hurt by anything. All these people who are always hurt, they're always injured hurt by what somebody says to them. You know what I mean? They can just be at peace no matter what somebody says to them, and they can enjoy the sunset and the clouds and the natural world, and they can appreciate the miraculous value of what they're eating and being grateful for the food they have that protects their body, and the relationship between the protective effect of natural foods and the body's innate immune system and how they function together. They start to have more passion and understanding of living, and they start to feel better about themselves. And then they have more power to be able to adhere to this difficulty we all live with, is trying to live so healthfully in an unhealthy world. So that's what we do at our retreat. It's not just feeding them food, teaching them cooking classes, giving them exercise classes. It's the time away from their addictive substances, and it's the learning they're going to get to feel better about themselves, so they don't need to use the crutch for stress and to try to build, and so they're not at war with themselves. I'm suggesting that you need good emotional health to be able to be comfortable being different from others, and you need a good, strong emotional health to be able to take care of yourself and pick the right foods and not try to use food as a crutch, or people use food as their sole recreation because it shows the meaningless of their life. And once you're an addict, it just diminishes the importance of the outside world. Because the more you become an addict, the more you become narcissistically concerned with meeting your brain's need for stimulation. And the brain needs stimulation, and it needs food stimulation and drug stimulation because that's the way we're raised. And our brain is taken over by the need for stimulatory substances like sugar and oils and the caloric rush. So this is all intertwined, and people need a combination of enforced abstinence, support, and a more comprehensive training module, you know.
And see, and that was the biggest surprise from the studies we've done together, where we went and looked at, they self-report the quality of life. We use these instruments, and we looked at depressive symptoms. And it was interesting that when we did that, we threw those tools on there. And we've seen what you're saying right now. When you bring the inflammation down and you quiet down the internal mechanisms of the body, we've seen the depressive symptoms drop by 50%. And remember in our 6-week study, we saw a 50% drop in depressive symptoms, quality of life go up, sleep quality go up. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's all intermingled like fibers of the cloth, because the food leads to a better emotional outlook, and better emotional outlook leads to better food choices. And you can't and when you marry them together, that's when you have the less chance of recidivism, the most chance of compliance. And it's all about people making the right choices for their own life and their own future and their own happiness. But they make the wrong choices for their own life, their own happiness.
And you know what the most disappointing part of this is you've seen this happen. I've seen this happen. And very few people in our selective fields of medicine and nutrition and dietetics, rarely do we get to see that with our patients, our guests, our participants. We rarely see that. And it reminds me of when you guest lectured through Zoom just this last semester. One student said, "Aren't you a little bit extreme? Aren't you like over the top?" And your response, I've been using it ever since. You said, "I've seen the magic." They said, "Why are you so extreme? Why are you so, aren't you too rigid?"
Yeah.
And you said, "No." You said, "I have seen the magic." Very few of our colleagues have seen the impact that quieting down the brain, the internal mechanisms, putting them in a nice environment where they're flooding their systems with micronutrients, they're quieting down, they're doing some internal work mentally. When you see that happen, that's what keeps us going.